Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Welcome, everyone. It is Friday night, and you're listening to Paranormal Review Radio, the only radio show without commercials and with more great paranormal talk. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I am Anthony Agati in New York.
And I'm Lucy Liefried in Chicago. Are you ready for another Paranormal Friday night? Thank you all for joining us tonight. We welcome all of our regular listeners and those of you who have tuned in for the very first time. If you have a question for our guest or about the topic tonight, feel free to ask us in the chat room or call into the show at 661-244-9831. Please press the number 1 to speak to us. Now, don't forget, you can always send us an email with future topics that you'd like to see on the show, or maybe you have a story or a theory that you want to share with us on air. Our email address is paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com. We also have our very own YouTube channel where you can listen in to all of our previous shows. Now, don't forget to check us out on our Facebook show page for more information on the paranormal and upcoming shows.
You know, our guest tonight is no stranger to the paranormal. In fact, some may say too familiar with the paranormal. Rick Hale was raised on the north side of Chicago and became fascinated with the field when he witnessed an apparition in his grandparents' home. It wasn't until the age of 17 when Rick began to actively investigate claims of ghosts and hauntings. Over the last 23-plus years, he has investigated with numerous groups and at many locations. Rick has many great accomplishments under his belt, such as the Paranormal Underground magazine, Paranormal Underground Radio on Z-Talk Radio, and a book he authored titled The Geeks Guide to the Strange and Unusual, Poltergeists, Ghosts, and Demons, which was published in 2013. In his book, he writes all about the strange and unusual and includes some really interesting paranormal cases from around the world. With all the years Rick has been in the field, I am positive that we are going to have a strange and unusual conversation talking about ghosts and demons tonight. I'm excited to get the show started, so without further delay, please help me in welcoming Rick Hale to the show. Hi, Rick. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Anthony. Hi, Lucy. Thank you so much for having me. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Rick. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you.
You know,
can you guys hear
Anthony
me okay?
and I have talked about...
Yes, we can, Rick. We can hear you fine.
You're coming in loud and
just
clear.
Wanted to make sure. Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead.
You know what? Anthony and I have talked about how we got into radio many times. Mm-hmm. And we even mentioned it last week on our show after our discussion with Deep South Paranormal. We saw the way groups and television began presenting how investigations and the paranormal were more of a game and a hobby than a quest for answers. Why did you begin your radio career in the paranormal?
Well, actually, it was really more or less of an accident. I had stumbled upon Paranormal Underground magazine. I was just surfing the internet in the middle of the night, and I was looking for free online magazines, and I found Paranormal Underground, read it, liked what I saw, and I sent in some, samples of my own writing, and they, it's Cheryl Knight, who is the editor and the producer of the show. She asked me to if I would come and write. About a year after that, we started Paranormal Underground Radio, live radio at ztalkradio.com. However, we are at azradio.com now. We made the move a little over a year ago. And it was just by accident. I never really intended to be involved in the entertainment side of the paranormal. I was just happy being a writer and happy being an investigator and a researcher, and pretty much everything else just fell into place. purely by accident.
Well, Jeff Belanger, the researcher on Ghost Adventures, he recently did one of those TEDx seminars, and he explained that ghosts may be present to teach us history. Now, this may be a deep, but could possibly be a simple question. In your opinion, what are ghosts and spirits to you? My background basically is parapsychology. I didn't professionally study it. I studied it on the side because, back in the 80s, that's pretty much all you had. So when it comes down to what ghosts and spirits may be, is it really the survival of the intelligence after the death of the body? Is it somehow a time slip? Is it somehow a telepathic projection? Nobody really knows. Personally, myself, I do believe in survival. So I think that if a ghost or a spirit is able to interact and be purposeful, that is more than likely what you're dealing with is the soul, spirit, whatever of a dead person.
Well, Rick, when I was doing the intro, I learned that you had first, experienced a ghost apparition in your grandmother's home. Typically,
yes.
Normally people, if they've had an experience like that, they sort of tend to run away and it frightens them, and they don't want to deal with the paranormal or ghosts or spirits or anything at all. It was different for myself, and it was different for you. But what was it with you that sort of intrigued you to further get into parapsychology and further get into the investigative nature of spirits and ghosts?
Well, I really initially started researching when I was about 8, 9 years old, and it was a good 7 or 8 years before I actually started investigating. But I think that it was just when I saw the spirit, the apparition of Mrs. McNett in my grandparents' house in Franklin Park, Illinois, I was so blown away by what I was seeing. There was no fear involved. Even when she looked down at me and said, "What a fine young boy." I mean, this is a person that had already known me because she had already seen me in my grandparents' house for a very long time. And it was just the idea of, what is this? What is this consciousness that has somehow survived the death of her body? Even at 8 years old, I was like, this is something that I want to explore in greater detail.
Did you feel that at that point you could possibly, either, as a child, I know I had the same sort of visions and dreams about getting into or trying to get further information or answers to the other side, to the afterlife. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that maybe even researching it more, or even at that moment that you were, or that spirit was communicating with you, did you feel that you could actually possibly get an answer that you could share with the world, or sort of, to me it sort of like sparks that initial, I guess, adrenaline in you, and I'm sure it did at that moment for you. But it sort of feels like you can conquer the world. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you can sort of, I know I can get the answer to this, and I know I can if I just further and put my head to the books and put my head to the experience and get something out of it. I know I can get the answer to it. Did you feel that you could actually sort of, quote unquote, conquer the world and possibly even get the true answers?
You know what? I won't agree with the conquer the world part, but I will agree with trying to get the answers. And it's all about trying, because it's such a difficult thing, because with every question you have, or every time you think you've answered something, there's 10 more questions.
Right.
So it's the eternal struggle. I mean, look at it. Organized parapsychology, or psychical research, as it was called when it first started in the 1870s, 1880s, somewhere around there. We've been doing this now for over 130 years. We still have not yet nailed what exactly it is that we're dealing with. I mean, you can have your beliefs, you can have your theories, but to really say that you are an expert in this, I usually tell people that you can't say that you're an expert, because the only experts are the dead. They're the ones that have, they're the ones that know the truth about what lies beyond this life.
Absolutely true. And as you were talking about, spanning these, these 130 years or so, recently, obviously, media has sort of been captivated in paranormal, and you see it all over in television and in the movies, and even in video games. And I've heard that you can be a very critical person on paranormal shows, and I am too, and Lucy is as well. I feel that there's only a handful of shows, maybe I could be even exaggerating at that point, but I think there's a handful of shows out there right now that are somewhat investigative and true and sort of less dramatic and less provocative. Sure. If you had your way, if you were the president of a channel or of a station on television, what kind of paranormal show would you like to put out there?
Well, I do like the investigative aspect of it, but the problem with the investigative aspect of it with shows like, and I hope that it doesn't bother you that I name shows. Take Ghost Adventures for example. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the thing that bothers me about Ghost Adventures is that they seem to enter these places, and every single place has a demon in it. And, that's kind of, it's like they don't even attempt to try and look into it, see if this kind of malicious activity is psychokinetic in nature, if this kind of is just a really pissed off spirit. Now, the show that I would love to see a show dealing with one place, one of the most haunted areas or haunted locations in the world, anywhere over in England, even here in Europe, even here in the United States, just one place where they film all the episodes there, doing actual investigative work, doing actual experimentation, trying to recreate testable moments and retestable moments to really nail down whether or not that place you're dealing with an actual haunting, or are you dealing with people, mass hysteria and hallucinations. I think that would be really fascinating rather than just going from location to location to location. Although those are great to watch and everything, but that one place at Waverly Hills. I recently went to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital where I had some amazing personal experiences there, and just that one place. That's it. That's where every episode is filmed. I think that would make a really cool television show.
I agree with you 110%. I think that if you do have a study, and it would be a study, and you're at one single location for however many episodes it is, and you do those retestings and you do those new technology experiments, and you find out what could have possibly, what you thought was real in the beginning maybe is not real, or you figure out what is sort of pipes bursting or floors creaking, whatever it is, and you'll be able to find that out. But I think, and I completely understand why the producers of the shows do what they do. It's because they want to gather the audience, they want to gather the ratings, they want to get as much people as possible. To you and I think the show that you just described would be absolutely amazing. But to the normal public, I don't think it will be, because they get bored after a while. But to me, what you just described is the true nature, is what is showing the true nature of a paranormal investigation or a paranormal group doing an investigation. That, to me, is true paranormal.
No, I completely agree with you. And like you said, you have to be able to keep the audience's interest peaked. It's like, okay, one day you're at Waverly Hills, the next day you're at Winchester Mansion or Winchester House, Winchester Mansion, and they show that it's only like you spend one night there. But from some of the people that I talked to that either involved in television or were involved in television, will tell you that it's like they're actually Anthony?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had interrupted you. They're actually there for a much longer time than a week, but like you said, they have to be able to keep the public's interest. So that's kind of what you're up against. To me, paranormal investigation it's not a sport. I'm not trying to grab trophies out there, which is why I don't have a website where I plaster all my evidence over, because I'm not not looking to make my ego huge because you look at my pictures or hear a sound recording and you're like, whoa, you're the greatest ghost hunter of all time. It's like, I don't even want to hear that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, getting into the radio side of your story, as Lucy and I have experienced, sometimes our guests can get a little out of hand, or sometimes what they bring up can cause a lot of controversy and hate. In all of your time as a radio host, has there been a time when you had a difficult guest or a controversial guest that just went sour?
No, and I'm really glad to say that. But like, you know, for example, like you said, that I can be very critical of the television shows, but you know, you have to have that kind of respectability. If you're going to have somebody on your show, you need to be respectful of them and listen to what they have to say and be completely objective. They have to come on your show and be respected because, well, that's your show. The only time that, actually, I take that back, the only time that I would say that something was a little bit weird was we had Alpha Ghost Team on shortly after we started the show. And they had talked about themselves as being the world's greatest paranormal investigator. Now, first off, that's something that's almost impossible to gauge because there are people out there that are doing great work. So I decided that I would give them the grilling, especially the founder of the group. And I talked to him. I'm like, well, what about this if it's, you know, if there's something on a quantum level, if it's something that is, you know, a time slip or something that it's an interdimensional being? And the dude was like, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, man. I mean, you can't call yourself the best if you can't answer the hard questions.
Right.
Well, you know what, Rick, when you were talking, just to go back a little bit, when you were talking about the show that you'd like to put on, what came to mind was Ghost Mine. Here you have a show that was basically in one location. You know,
right.
What did you think of Ghost Mine?
I've never seen it.
Okay.
I've never actually watched it. When it was on, I know that it's not on anymore. We had to kind of scale back things a little bit, you know, for money purposes, household purposes. And one of those things was scaling back a lot of the cable television that we had. So when it was on, I never really got a chance to see it. So I can't really answer that intelligently.
Okay. Well, I do want to ask you, when you were an investigator with groups, did you do residential homes, or was it just abandoned places, or specific known haunted locations, or was it a combo of the two?
Actually, I specialize in private homes. I do believe that is where the real work is done. A lot of times you hear from paranormal groups that it's like, well, we want to help, but all they do is they go to abandoned places or places where you're going to pay $1,000 to spend a night. The real work is done when you walk into somebody's home and they're terrified of whatever it is that may be in their house. You do your investigation, you give them the evidence of what you've caught, and then you educate them on what it is that's going on in their home. And you can take that fear away and rather give them reason and enlightenment. It's like, hey, you know what? You just got some curmudgeonous old man that's living in your basement right now, and you know what? We were able to convince him that it's like, hey, you can live side by side with these people. Usually, you know, something like that is done through a psychic medium. And but here's the crux of the matter. Here's the problem. A lot of times when you come to private homes, they are only familiar with what they see on TV. So right away they think, well, something is, you know, knocking a book off the shelf, well, or seems like it's going something. Well, it must be some kind of evil spirit. Well, no, not exactly. It's either you're experiencing a poltergeist situation, which is not a ghost in and of itself, but rather psychokinetic energy, or you're just dealing, like I said, with some curmudgeonous old man. When you can take that fear away and you can actually help people, that's, in my opinion, where the rubber meets the road. So I love doing that kind of work in private homes. Although I will go to places that is, you know, like Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, which was like with a big group of people. That was a lot of fun. That's more fun. That's more having fun. That's more entertaining. But when you do the private home, you can take that fear away. That's when the real work is done.
Okay, well, one thing I want to ask you, and we've talked about this before on the show. Anthony and I, we don't really do private homes, and part of the reasoning is that because when you're going into a private home, this is this person's, where they live. Have you ever come across a situation in a private home where, I guess maybe what I want to ask is, how long do you spend with with the home in the home? Has there ever been a situation where you come across something where you couldn't get an answer? How do you leave it at that point, or do you refer them, or what happens then?
Well, usually, if I conduct an investigation, I always work with a medium. And the medium that I work with, Nancy Laporta, she's passed my own special little gauntlet of tests, and I do believe that she has a real ability. And it's when you use a medium that you're really able to get down. If there is an actual spirit of something there, that by using a medium, you're able to contact that spirit directly. Now, we may only spend an hour in a house. We may spend 4 or 5 hours in a home. We may get the chance to go back a couple of different times. It's very rare that I've actually been able to go back to a home more than twice. But I think that if you're able to go back again, you go back again. But if you're able to at least get something that first time around, then you've done the job.
Well, do you feel, just one more question about this. Do you feel that when you've left that private home that you've solved the issue, or is it something, or is it like, okay, here's the issue, here's what you got to do? Or do you know what I'm saying? I mean, for me, it just seems like such a responsibility to go into a private home. Here's a person that's got some kind of activity, something's happening there. And it's a responsibility to go in and say, look, here's what's happening. How do you solve that problem?
Well, I think that's after you've done the investigation and after you've gathered all the evidence, it really becomes the homeowners or the person living in the home. It becomes their responsibility to kind of sit down with the spirit and be like, hey, look, this is our home. You're invited to share our home with us. I mean, if we're talking about, that this is just some kind of like human spirit and, whatever. But, usually it's been my experience that you can reason with human spirits and you can really sit down and talk to them because, let's face it, they're people too, just without a body. And they can be just as reasonable as you can. I've had many investigations where I would call back and be like, hey, how is this stuff that's going on in your home? And they're like, well, we had a chat with the spirit or spirits in our home, and it seems like we're able to live together harmoniously. But if something is willing to keep raising hell in your home, that is when I would bring a psychic medium back, my partner in Nancy Laporta, and she is pretty good about clearing homes, or pretty good with clearing homes. And, I've actually been on a few investigations where we were able to get rid of whatever it was in the home and call back a couple of weeks later and they're like, we haven't experienced anything at all. So it's various different things.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Tonight we're going to get into many different topics, including your book, The Geek's Guide to the Strange and Unusual. And it covers poltergeists, ghosts, and demons. So I guess my first question would be, why cases of poltergeists and demons? I mean, it seems to be on the minds of many people, including those in the paranormal. But why did you begin to write about these types of cases?
Well, I think take poltergeists, for example. Poltergeists, 500-600 years ago were called demons. I mean, people thought that they were somehow evil spirits that were out to get them. But now we know that this is actually comes from a person rather than from a spirit. It's psychokinetic. They call it recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. But we use the term poltergeist because it's easier to say and remember rather than RSPK. So with that, I wanted to educate people. It's like a poltergeist is basically a psychic temper tantrum gone completely insane. It's not a ghost, although I do believe that kind of energy that is expended can attract either spirits to it, or it could fuel already existing paranormal activity that's in the home, such as, a ghost, spirit, whatever. Now, with demons, for example, we had covered already. I mean, this is something that is just everywhere right now. Everybody that has has something in their home that's not really right, well, it must be a demon, or it's something that's in their business, it must be a demon. And if that is all a person is really equipped with, it's going to scare the hell out of them. So if you can go in there and you can study it and you can write about it and you can document it and maybe help answer the question that, no, this is not a demon, this is just some real, like I said earlier, a curmudgeonous old fart trying to cause problems in your home. So it's all a part of, educating the public that this is not something that you need to fear. This is something that you don't have to give into fear-based superstition concerning this. This is something that can come through reason and enlightenment and understanding and trying to understand what it is that you're dealing with. And that's kind of, what I wanted to bring from my book. That it's like, this is not something that you have to fear. This is something that you can understand and reason with and be enlightened by.
I had asked this question to our guest last week, and I thought maybe I can ask you the same thing. Which would you prefer? Going into a location that no one has ever investigated before and finding a haunting, or going into a location that has been investigated a million times over, but you or your group has uncovered something new?
I would rather go to a place that has been investigated maybe once or twice. You have these, I like to call them big box hauntings.
Right.
Places like the Lee Hills or whatever. There are literally thousands of people a year. I mean, the Mattinglys that own the place, man, they do quite a business. And that's not to say anything about their character or whatever, but it's like that place is haunted, although I've never been there, but I know plenty of reliable people that have been there. But I would rather go into a place that has only been investigated once or twice rather than go to a place where thousands of people have been in.
Do you feel that it's the discovery, or is it just that it's more pure, it's more innocent, and then you can gather more of that energy and that attraction to that location?
Yeah, I think it is the discovery that you are possibly dealing with something new that nobody has ever dealt with before. Because I always have this idea in my mind that one of these days all the spirits and ghosts, they're going to go on strike. And they're, we're not going to haunt until 10,000 people stop coming through here a year asking me, dumb questions like, do you know that you're dead? Of course they know that they're dead. They've been asked it 1,000 times. So it's
right.
It's definitely about the discovery, and it's about helping people as well.
What's your opinion on the words ghost hunter to describe someone that investigates in the paranormal?
It's really difficult for me to say that this is something that I find a dumb or a stupid term, because it's not. People like Hans Holzer called themselves a ghost hunter. Harry Price called himself a ghost hunter. All the great paranormal researchers and investigators call themselves ghost hunters at one time or another. I just think that it's a term that people are more familiar with rather than saying, I'm a parapsychologist or a psychical researcher. When I told people in the past that I'm a psychical researcher, they look at me like, well, what the hell is that? And it's like, I'm like, oh, well, it's a ghost hunter. You know what I'm saying? It's all just, it's semantics is what it is.
Okay, well, you know what, Rick? In your book, you wrote about the Dagg Poltergeist case. Now, this case actually involved an apparition, which seems to be very unusual. And it also seems that one of the people involved may have projected the activity into the minds of others in the home. I'm curious, is this something that happens a lot, or is this an isolated case?
No, I think that it's something that happens a lot. I think of other poltergeist cases, such as the Enfield Poltergeist and the Enfield being in London, England, of course. And there was another one in Pontefract, England. They call it the Black Monk of Pontefract. Started out basically as a typical poltergeist haunting, psychokinetic in origin. It's coming from a person rather than a place or a thing. But what happens is that I do believe that this energy that is put out there, it's a strong energy. I mean, if you could see this psychokinetic energy that is put out, it would blaze like a sun. What happens is that it either attracts and draws transient spirits in, or it gives fuel to something that may already be there, dormant, or just is sort of indifferent, doesn't really care, just sort of exists there. All of a sudden it gives it more energy. But at the same time, there are people that do believe that the poltergeist agent, which is the person that is expelling the psychokinetic energy, that telepathically they're able to project that image into a person's mind. Take, for example, the Black Monk from Pontefract, for example. Everybody in that town knew that at one time, hundreds of years ago, there was a Cluniac monastery that was in the area, and everybody knew that the monks had lived there and that they had, moved amongst all of the people or had moved amongst the town. So whoever, I don't think they ever really determined who the actual agent, poltergeist agent was in that home. It was probably the son. He was familiar with that and decided to, unwittingly project that image that he was already familiar with into the minds of others, that here's this horrifying image of this monk in a black hood and habit. Or robe, rather, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the book also, you do talk about one of Chicago's haunted spots, Bachelor's Grove. And we've investigated there, and, of course, I've been there several times. I've never felt any dark, okay? And those of us who have grown up here, we've heard all the stories of dark happenings in the area, mainly devil worship and rituals. So my question, does this kind of activity open up a portal of sorts to something dark like demons?
You know what? Some people do. I've never, like yourself, I've never come up against anything that was dark. The only time that I came up with something that I would say was negative was an EVP that was collected. It was in an opening, and I was there with a couple friends of mine, and I don't even remember the question that I asked, but the response that I got was, let the mother effer feel the pain. Mm-hmm. And you could hear it as plain as day. I get chills even just now just saying that. But it's like, that was the only time that I had never really come across anything that's negative there. But if there is some kind of occult ritual, it has no religious meaning to me whatsoever, but to other people it does. If there is something like some kind of ritual, that, I suppose that it is possible that it is able to attract something that's already there and add fuel to that fire. I mean, as you know, and many other people in the Chicagoland area know, this place is haunted. This place has numerous ghosts in it. My own wife had an interesting experience that somebody was following her around. This was before we were married, following her around the cemetery, and she's not really a believer in this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just to expand on that EVP, I mean, with the history of the location, I mean, it was a dumping ground for bodies, for Al Capone and his guys. So, right. That kind of EVP would fall into line with possibly someone that was dumped there, But like you said, I've never felt anything really negative.
No, never. Again, I think it's one of those places that, I mean, yes, there is activity there. Yes, the place is, haunted, and I am using, air quotes here, by the way. It is a place that is haunted. And I think that it's like with anything else that is mysterious, anything else that was, that people don't have a complete understanding about, of course, there's going to be, stories, and there's going to be urban legends, and there's going to be, stuff that arises around it. And I think that that's what's happened to Bachelor's Grove. Bachelor's Grove is one of those places that it has a life of its own now.
I agree.
Well, T.J. Vaughn in chat, and I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, Rick, but T.J. Vaughn in chat posed a question. What percentage of poltergeists involve adults as opposed to children? Do you know?
You know what? I hate putting percentages on anything because there's so many variables and so many unknowns. But there have been many cases where there is poltergeist that can be attributed to somebody that is over 8 years old. I think of the Rosenheim poltergeist case. I think her name was Anna Marie Schroeder. She was 19 years old, but she was experiencing some extreme stress at the time. She had a boyfriend that was abusive to her. She was estranged from her family. She hated her job, and she had actually had many psychic episodes in her life leading up to this. So that's definitely one. There is another one, oddly enough, that happened about the same time in Miami. This was a 20-year-old man who was working in I think it was a warehouse, and they were selling, you walk into those kind of, souvenir stores or whatever, and you buy an ashtray that was floored on it.
Right.
And ashtrays were being broken and things were, they were throwing around. As soon as he left that job, everything had stopped. Again, this is a older person. Clearly, these are just but two examples. That's only two that I can give. There are many other ones out there where poltergeist is not necessarily caused by a 13-year-old girl going through the trials and travails of puberty. This is something that can happen to anybody.
And I'm sure that there are cases that are not even recorded. People have just dealt with whatever that experience is and just moved on.
Well, here's the thing with poltergeist cases. A poltergeist can last anywhere from 2 minutes to 2 years. I could be sitting here right now. I could be really, really pissed off at somebody and really mad at my wife, and all of a sudden the book falls off my shelf. Now, did I project that energy out there? It's a possibility, yeah.
Right.
But I don't believe that it's just primarily saved for, like I said, that 13-year-old girl that's going through puberty.
I apologize for going back and forth, but we're talking about, before we were talking about demons and, the dark side of the paranormal. Lucy and I did a show not too long ago where we exposed and interviewed someone who claimed to be able to perform an exorcism via the phone and Skype. And we got a lot of flack for doing that show, but the intent was to show how something as ridiculous as that is going on in the world and people are believing it, meaning exorcism via the phone or computer. With all the claims and demonology businesses out there, do you feel that it's gone over the edge and innocent people are being taken advantage of out there, like the Bob Larsons of the field?
Oh, yeah, I really do believe so. I'm very active in marriage equality and gay rights. Bob Larson said that homosexuality was caused by demons and that he can get rid of those demons. I'm like, this, pardon my French, shit has gone way overboard now.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, what was the question again? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Do you feel that obviously this sort of demonology business has gone over the edge and innocent people are taken advantage of?
Yeah.
Do you feel that it has just gone too far and someone needs to pull it back?
Yeah, I think so too. I can tell you about one poltergeist case that I've dealt with, and I've dealt with only two in my time. To me, it is a very rare thing, and like you said, a lot of people don't like to talk about it. This woman and her daughter had special needs. Her daughter was autistic. They were having some very violent things happening in their home. Things were being thrown around the house. Books were, flying off of shelves, breaking dishes. So they had a paranormal group in their home. And this paranormal group said that your house is infested with demons and your daughter is possessed. Now, this is a girl that has special needs. She's autistic. This is a mother who has just recently got out of a very abusive, emotionally as well as physically abusive relationship with her husband. And to have these people come in here and say that they have this, and then charge $3,000 to have a shaman come in and get rid of these evil spirits. Now, when I spoke to the woman on the phone, she told me, I was like, okay, what is going on in your home? She told me everything that was going on in her home. Well, she didn't have any demons in her home. She was dealing with a poltergeist, and her little girl, who was 11 years old, was not the agent. Mom was the agent. So I suggested to the mother, I'm like, maybe you and your daughter should have some kind of family therapy. 2 weeks later, follow up with her. There is nothing going on in the home. They had the family therapy. They were talking out all of their problems. Mom was getting rid of all of the junk and garbage that she had to go through in her life. This was causing a huge psychokinetic bubble. And then to have these people come into her home and then tell her that her daughter, who is autistic, has demons in her. This is where this stuff it needs to stop.
Yeah.
There needs to be an education concerning this. The only problem is that people like myself, or people like Lloyd Auerbach, or people like Barry Tapp, nobody wants to listen to us. They want to have the people tell them, yeah, you got something evil in your home, and here's how you deal with it, and we're going to charge you $3,000 to have a shaman and clear the house. It's like, oh my God, please, did you even take the time to try and figure out what was going on, or was that all you were equipped with, and was that all you immediately went to? See, and I think that we need to get out of this fear-based superstition, and we need to come into more reason and enlightenment. You know, people are always talking about how we're trying to move the paranormal field for into the future, but you can't do that every time you call the demon, because you move everything back 100 years.
Right.
I'm very passionate about this. I apologize if it comes that way.
No. Not at all.
No, I'm joking.
You know what?
Okay.
Well, we're talking about, demonic demons and demonic influence. And, there have been several cases of mass murders which seem to have a demonic connection, such as, Richard Ramirez. And actually just this week, a 19-year-old girl named Miranda Barber, she claims she's committed many slayings after she became involved with the satanic cult. Now, do you feel that these kinds of things are a result of possible demonic influence, and can the crimes themselves leave a lasting impression on the location?
No, and I'm only going to say that because I work in the mental health field, so I have somewhat of an understanding about how that kind of thing works. These are people who are mentally disturbed. They are people that have some kind of psychosis in and of themselves, and they don't need Satan, and they don't need demons to help them do these kind of things. They do these things because they are mentally ill. They get involved with these kind of things, and what it does is it just adds fuel to that mental illness. And oftentimes, tragically, it results in people being hurt or people being killed. Such is the case with Richard Ramirez. Here was a guy, he had gone through sexual abuse, and he had gone through other kinds of abuse, and by the hands of an uncle, I believe it was. I mean, at a young age, that causes psychosis. This can turn into hurting and killing others. I don't think that the devil made me do it thing. Obviously, our court system doesn't really listen to that kind of defense, and probably it is best that way, because people do need to be held accountable for the crimes they commit.
Well, Rick, is there anything that you feel that you can say, or even if this is an accomplishment, to do to prove to a skeptic or to a non-believer that ghosts and spirits do exist and that they're communicating with us? you feel that there's anything that you've maybe in the past, maybe is there something that you've said to someone or have shown to someone that has turned their belief into the line of the paranormal?
You know what? This is, and I tell this to a lot of people who get involved, and they're like, man, I just want to prove to the world that this kind of thing exists. I want to make that skeptic or that non-believer into a believer. And you're not going to be able to do it. This is not a religion. You're not out to proselytize people or go door to door and say, hey, can we tell you the good news about the paranormal? It's not like that. This is a mindset that has been only within the last 10 years, that people feel a need to turn the skeptic into a believer. I personally, I don't like, dealing with the skeptic is okay. Dealing with a non-believer or a cynic is practically impossible. There's nothing that you could do or say or show them that will make them believe. They are the people that if a UFO landed on the White House front lawn and the ghost of Bigfoot came out asking for a beer, their first question would be, where's the zipper?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There really is nothing you can do to convince them otherwise, and I'm okay with that. My ego is not so wrapped up into this that it's like I feel a need to convert somebody. That's a mindset that has crept its way into this, and it's a mindset that is that's an error. This is not a religion. This is a field of scientific and metaphysical inquiry.
Do you think that there will be something that happens, or that there may be one big event that happens that will change the world's view on the paranormal?
There have been many big events. You think about people who take, for example, let's take UFOs for example. Okay, you had the mass sightings in Mexico back in the 1980s. You had the Phoenix Lights. My brother and his partner live in Phoenix, and many of their friends had seen the Phoenix Lights. These are mass sightings. These are things that thousands of people, not just a few dozen, but hundreds and thousands of people see. But there will always be that person that says that will cast complete doubt on it. And because they are so well funded and because they are so well respected that people are like, hey, yeah, wow, you know what? You're right. It was military flares. I don't know about you. I've seen military flares because my dad was in the military, so I've seen them at night. Whatever that was in the sky, that was not flares. That was something that was truly unexplained.
I just read recently that the Vikings calendar is saying that tomorrow is supposed to be the end of the world. So, I guess we're supposed to party tonight. But what do you hope readers take away from your book or listeners take away from your radio show if the world were to end tomorrow?
I would hope that they were educated somehow. This field, that they came to a better understanding about what it is that they may be dealing with. Shortly after my book was released, I received a really great review by a woman who said that listening to the show and reading not only just my book but my blog, she was able to come to grips with what she had to deal with as a child. And she said that it was poltergeist in nature, but there were spirits that were seen. And she came away with a better understanding that, hey, she's not crazy. This is something that really happened to her. So if I had to say, just be educated, come to this with reason and enlightenment rather than fear-based superstition.
That's good advice.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? This has been a really interesting conversation. Thank you, Rick, for coming on the show. I do have one last question. Okay. Mm-hmm. If there was such a thing as a president of the paranormal, like a president of the United States, and you were the president of the paranormal, and you had to give the State of the Union, what would you say about paranormal groups, media and television programs, conventions, and all that? Are we in a good place right now, or is there work needed?
I think that there is a lot of work that's needed. I mean, it's great and everything that if you want to go to a convention, I'm actually going to be speaking at my very first convention here in September in Bluebell, Pennsylvania, Paranormal Journeys. It's put on by a good friend and colleague of mine, John Fowler. And I think that, first off, I got to be honest, I don't think I would want that job. That job would suck, man. To have everybody come to you about every little thing and then voting on what it is you have to say, but whatever. It's not a job that I would want. But I do think that there needs to be more research. There needs to be more education that is done in this field right now, rather than just running into a building, waving an EMF detector in the air, demanding that something show itself, something that may or may not even be there. You need to take the time and make the effort to research and try and understand what you are dealing with. Otherwise, you're going to be like with this family that I had talked to you about, this mother and their daughter. People come into their home telling them that they have demons when the daughter is autistic and all they're dealing with is like psychokinetic ability. Research. I say research, investigate, research some more.
Well, if I may interrupt, Lucy, I don't know the answer, and I've always said this same exact thing that you just said. I believe research is the number one thing within this field. Without it, you're nothing. You really are nothing, and it will not move forward at all. You're just like you had mentioned. Right. You're going back 400 years. What to you is that research? What can people start to do? We say it so vastly, and I've said it before, just like you've said it. But what to you would be sort of like the baby step that people can start to do? Maybe even starting tomorrow. A listener that's listening right now. What could they do? If they're not even in the paranormal, like in a group or and have never maybe even investigated a home, but but are interested in the paranormal. What could they do tomorrow to maybe sort of help the field a little bit more?
Visit your local library, and don't just get books out on ghosts. I tell people that it's a good idea to look into things like psychology and anthropology and try to understand, because a lot of ghost lore and comes from it's very cultural in nature. What we may see as something that is evil and horrible and rotten and darkly spiritual, to somebody else it's something that's perfectly normal. Don't get your information from a television show, because that's entertainment. And I think that most intelligent people, or the majority of intelligent people, know that this is just purely for entertainment. But visit your local library. Read books on anthropology, read books on psychology, read books on archaeology, read books that are written by people like, say, such as Hans Holzer, who is my greatest influence. I oftentimes refer to him as the greatest teacher I never knew. His book, Ghost Hunter, was one of the very first books that I took out from the Chicago Public Library when I was 9 years old. One of the very first books. I loved it so much, I read it 3 times in the 2 weeks that I had it and actually thought about keeping it, swiping it from the library and never returning it. And, it's like, just read. Look at the things that Hans Holzer had to go into. Read up on the case studies of great parapsychologists like J.B. Rhine. Study, how parapsychology, psychical research, ghost hunting, whatever you want to call it, where it got its start. It's got its start from some very humble beginnings in England back in the 1880s. Of course, it was run mostly by philosophers and scientists and educators, but these are people that had a burning desire to know and to understand what it was that was in that human experience that people were, basically they were experiencing. So I would say don't get any of your information from a television show. Visit your local library. Look for books, especially books on parapsychology, because I think that that's where the research begins. And then research, read, and then finally, if you're able to, go out and experience it for yourself.
Excellent advice. Rick, thank you again. Can you tell our listeners where they can go to learn more about you, your book, and your radio show? Okay.
Primarily for my book, The Geeks Guide to the Strange and Unusual, Poltergeist, Ghosts, and Demons, you can find me at my website, which is thegeeksguide.net. You can read all about me. You can read my blog that my publisher. I usually write it on my Facebook page, and then my publisher will take it to my Facebook page and then put it on my on the geekguy.net. We are on Paranormal Underground Radio is on Thursday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Central. Don't ask me what that is on the East and West Coast because I'm horrible with time zones. And but from 8 to 10 p.m. Central at hazyradio.com. And or you can find us at paranormalunderground.net, which is, of course, the magazine. And we can also be found on Android devices now, and we can also be found in the iPhone newsstand. And, of course, if you want to friend me at Facebook, please, just Rick Hale. That's all you got to type in. Boom, there I am. And you'll see a picture of me, my beautiful wife, and my cute little boy.
Great.
Okay, well, you know what? We hope you had some fun tonight, and maybe we can have you back on the show again.
Hopefully, maybe next time I can give you a little bit more time, but unfortunately the real work is tonight.
Okay, well, good night, Rick. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, guys.
Have a great weekend. Take care now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lucy, you there?
Yeah.
I liked what he was talking about towards the end there. And to be fair and honest, I may have put him on the spot, and I apologize to Rick for that. But I'm guilty of saying it as well. I've always said, and you always said, I'll put you on the spot, Lucy. We've always said research. We always talk about that is the most important factor in investigating, in learning more about paranormal, in trying to move this field forward instead of backward. It's all about the research. It's your mind, my mind, and the person out there that's listening right now, their mind, and what it's being interpreted, and possibly the answers that are formulated within your great minds out there that could possibly lend to more answers and further the development within the paranormal. But I did like what he had said, and he mentioned, basically in a nutshell, he was also saying that, you have to know the past before trying to live in the future. Doing the research, yes, it's a vast task. It's a huge category to put that sort of what can we do to help. But going to the library, like Rick was saying, and taking out a book, or even going online, you don't even have to leave your house. If you've got a computer, go online and check out some history on paranormal. Because I'm a firm believer, if you don't know what originated and how it was originated and the development of some of the theories and ideas out there from some of the greatest minds, scientific and non-scientific within the paranormal, if you don't understand where it all began, how could you understand where we're going in the future or help to develop where we're going into the future? Because you're not getting the entire picture. You haven't understood the entire realm of the field of paranormal. And so, yeah, maybe that is the first thing that people should do out there, is go out there and learn the history of it. Learn about the Fox sisters and as Rick was talking about Hans Holzer and Lloyd Auerbach and all the things that have gone on before in early history, and learn about what the greater minds have talked about the paranormal, even get into the scientific side of things, and learn about some of those folks and some of the great minds in that field and what their interpretations of the paranormal are. There are some things that I have found, even in doing research for some of the shows that we've done, but more so for the project that I'm working on, is that the comparison of the two, some things have clicked in me, and some things have altered my state of mind and my thinking pattern to the paranormal. And I've been finding some answers, whether they're right or wrong. I've just been finding some answers that I've been further developing and further discovering. That, to me, is a spark enough to move things forward. I don't know if you agree with that, Lucy.
No, I do agree. You know what? The first thing that I think of, when he was talking about research, and when we talk about research, I kind of equate the paranormal investigating with going to a new city, okay? Before you go to a new city, you kind of want to do some research. You want to know, where facilities are. You want to know you're going to buy a home in a certain area. You want to know what that area is like. Well, to me, paranormal investigating is the same thing. You're going into an area, a location that you don't know anything about. I'm sure you've heard, that there's activity, there's something happening, there's some kind of phenomena that goes on. But to actually step into that location without knowing the background about it is it's not exactly, I don't want to say not exactly smart, but you really wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go to a different city or a different area, without checking it out first. So by doing the research, by learning what's going on, it prepares you for what you're going to find. And then again, too, it gives you kind of a background as to why certain things are happening. I mean, we've gone to locations that, the first time we go to a location, we can hear all the stories and we can read all the accounts. But until you actually experience it yourself, you have no idea. You have no clue. I mean, it's just a story in a book. It's just an account online. But when you're actually there, you're experiencing this. And everything that you've done to that point, all that research, may help you understand what exactly is going on. And that understanding may help you find some kind of answer.
I may be putting you on the spot again, and don't kill me.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. And Sharon Swift in chat had sort of made this comment a while back, and I tend to, I'll tend to look at chat and write down notes and stuff. I do appreciate everyone's contribution in the chat room. I love it. Even when people are asking questions in chat, I'll try and make sure that I look and write it down, because sometimes the chat will scroll so fast that I'll lose the spot. So I'll write down that question and I'll ask it. But Sharon didn't ask a question. She had made a comment, and I think it was at the time when Rick was talking about private home investigations and doing residential investigations. And, everyone who has listened to our show knows that Lucy and I don't do that. And, we mentioned it tonight when we were talking to Rick about it, simply because we can't take on that responsibility. We're not confident enough when we do go out and investigate. We're not confident enough to go into a residential home, someone's private residence, and try and tackle answers for them when we simply don't know what we're dealing with. We don't. I will be the first to say that I don't know what this whole thing is all about. I really don't. Am I speaking to a spirit? I could be, but I could not be. I still don't know. I still have that doubt. I'm not saying that spirits don't exist or ghosts don't exist at all. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that, I don't know who's on that other end of that phone call, in quotes. I'm doing air quotes right now. I don't know who exactly is, because, it's not like I'm facing you straight on. We're not in the same room and I can physically see you. That doesn't happen many, many times. So what Sharon had mentioned in chat was that it seems to be that it's more rewarding to do private home investigations. And I think I agree with that. I completely agree with that, because I think it's a rewarding aspect to the field of paranormal when you can go into a home and help innocent folks, an innocent family who's been tortured and tormented, or just annoyed by spirits that are in their home, and they want to live a quote unquote normal life, that they just want whatever is invading their privacy or sharing their home with them to either live, in coexistence, or move on, so that the living, their family, can continue, a normal life. But I don't know. It's kind of strange, because I'll look at words and I'll sort of pick them apart, and I agree with Sharon, but then again, I'm hung up on that word reward. And, yes, it does feel good, but I still think I can feel just the same and just as rewarding as if I were to go into an a haunted location that has been investigated 1,000,000 times over, I still think finding the answers that I do find, that I feel rewarded enough that it sort of validates my beliefs, but also conjures up, we've said it before, a lot more questions, but also answers some things for myself. So I think that's rewarding as well. And I don't know, Lucy, after hearing what I just talked about, do you feel that same way? Do you think that it is more rewarding to go in a residential home than doing an investigation somewhere else that is abandoned or is a haunted location that's been around and been investigated 1,000,000 times over? Or do you think there's an equal balance to that?
I don't know if I can really answer that. Because one, I can honestly say that I really don't want to do a private home investigation. And the reasoning behind that is what we've talked about. It's such a responsibility to go into someone's home where their family lives, where their children are, and to come in and to try to move a spirit on. I don't claim to have that ability, and I don't know if I'll ever have that ability. I mean, I just think that it's something that's really, really serious when it comes to someone's home. And if anything, if I were to go in and to make something worse, you've said it, I've said it, I couldn't live with myself. So,
well, no, and to be honest, yes, we said that 1,000,000 times over, but I want you to answer this question, Lucy. Do you think
would it be rewarding?
Do you think it would be it's more rewarding to do a private home than it would be to do, a location that we've gone to? Do you think it's more rewarding to do a home, or do you think it's just as equal rewarding to do sort of both sides of that?
No, I don't think it is. I don't.
You don't think it is?
I don't think it is.
Do you think it's equal, or do you think one is? You think the other side? You think investigating an abandoned or a location that we've gone to before, what we do basically, is more rewarding than doing a private home?
I think it would be about equal, because the whole purpose of investigating for me is to find evidence of the other side. And regardless if it's in a private home or if it's in a location that's been known, I think I would get the same kind of satisfaction if I'm able, not to prove, but to be able to find that activity. I think it would be, for me, I think it would be about the same.
And I don't mean to bring this up, to bring up Sharon's comment. It's a great comment. I think it truly sparked an interest in me to respond to it because of the word rewarding, and I do believe in Sharon's feeling on this and her comment and her opinion that she feels it's more rewarding to do private home investigations. I do too. I think it is rewarding because, one, you're helping a family. You're helping someone continue living a normal life. And also, two, it's sort of that, this is not negative, but it's sort of that selfish, validation. You've been able to do something for someone else. You're boasting yourself. Your feelings are even better and greater because you've been able to do that. Yeah, I see it. I see it as being more rewarding. But I also think that for myself, to answer that or to respond to something like that, that I think doing a regular location that is non-residential, I think could be just as rewarding. Now, I don't know what it feels like, and I don't know what goes into a private residential investigation. I don't know. I've never done it, and I don't think I ever will do it. So I don't know if I can truly answer, not that this is a question, but I don't know if I can truly answer the question that I've posed to you and to myself, whether or not that is more rewarding. I guess I can only answer it on the stance of where I'm at right now, my current experience. But to me, I don't know. I think it could be both. Both of them could be rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure they could be, and I'm saying that, but honestly, in my heart of hearts, I can't really say that it would be more rewarding, only because I'm never going to do that. I there's something in me that I just don't want to do that. I don't want to take that responsibility, and that's not why I'm investigating. And part of me is kind of like almost, and not to say that and I know there are people that help people, and what, God bless them. They go into they can help a family. If they can, then what, that's wonderful, and that's great. But part of me is almost like, before you do something like that, you've got to check yourself and make sure that your intentions of what you're doing is to truly help someone, and not simply just to boost your own ego or to boost your own, air quote, career. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to come off as cold or anything, but for me, it's just something that I can't see myself ever doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it is something that I don't think I will ever experience. I'm not interested in going that route. That may be harsh for me to say. I think it would be really great to be able to help someone, but it would be really detrimental if I hurt someone, and that's a 50-50 possibility. And we've said this many times over that I certainly cannot live with myself if that ever happened. The idea of, first of all, not completely knowing. I don't know all the answers. I cannot sit up on a throne and cast stones down at people and say that this is true, this is fact, because it's not. And just as Rick Hale said, and I agree with him, oh my God, like 200%, the only people who know the true answers are the dead. Those are the people and those are the spirits that know exactly what it is. And we've said that many times, that the only way that we are ever going to get those answers is when we cross over. So for anyone to say that they're an expert or someone who is a master, quote-unquote master in the field, is only creating that credential for themselves and boost their own ego and their own, like you were saying, career. It is not something to be dealt with lightly. And Rick had mentioned it too. He mentioned a story about how a group went into a home, and either it be that they were not educated enough, or they were just not interested and did not fully give of themselves and of the investigation to find out what was there, and led this family into a wrong path. And he and his group, or if it was just he himself, Rick, went in and gave the family what should have been done from the very beginning. So it just, I don't want to be lumped into that group. I don't want to be. Maybe that group did come in there with the best intentions, but again, you go in there with the best intentions, but it's all about knowledge. It's all about the things that you know, and we don't know everything. And so I cannot step my foot into that doorway, into a private home, and claim to be able to resolve or to even be able to find answers for that family. I'd be doing them an injustice, and I wouldn't be rewarding them, and I certainly wouldn't be rewarding myself.
Well, that's part of the reasoning why I asked what I did. I mean, is it something, you go to a private home, in my mind, logic tells me that it's not something that you can probably solve in a 2-hour visit, or even an 8-hour visit. I mean, there's got to be follow-up. There's got to be research to the problem. What comes to mind is like Paranormal State. How they do their pre-investigation interviews. Then they investigate, and it's not something in my mind. And this is the only way that I'm picturing it. Not because I'm not saying that this is right. No one's right. There's no expert. But I just can't see a group or a team going into a private home just for one night and being able to solve whatever is there.
I don't know. I don't know the answers. Maybe they can. But logic just tells me that I just don't think that can happen. Personally, I don't think that I would be able to help someone in one night, only because, like you said, we're not experts. We don't know everything. Every investigation we do, I'm still learning. I will call myself a student of the paranormal till I'm on the other side, because I won't know. And that's kind of like how I approach this. You know, this is all a learning experience. I would be the last person on earth to call myself an expert, because I will never know everything. I won't know everything until we're on the other side.
You know, Trina Morton must be reading my mind, because she wrote in chat, she brought up the Dead Files. And, you know, that's one of your favorite shows. I mean, it's one of mine, but it's one of your favorite shows. But they go into residential homes. You know, I don't know how long they stay in the location. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5 days. I can't see them staying any longer. And they give their assessment, and they tell the homeowners what they need to do, which is what Rick was talking about earlier, that he leaves it in the homeowner's hands, that they have homework to do. It's not just the psychic medium, or it's not just the investigator that's there in the home. The homeowner needs to take responsibility as well, and they need to do things along to help it, because, you know, I mean, to be honest, an investigator or a medium or a someone who's psychic cannot be in that home 24/7. So there needs to be a continuation of the process, and that's on the homeowner's responsibility. But the show Dead Files does it for a period of time, give their assessment, give that the homework or the remedy or the solution or possible solution, and they move on. And you're fascinated with that show, and so it sort of is almost the same thing. And that same feeling, but it seems like your I can't think of the word right now. your methodology or your thinking. I don't know. Help me, people. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But your theory on it is different than your opinion of the show The Dead Files.
Well,
you know what I'm trying to get at?
Steve Duchovny has said that they usually spend a week, or, you know, at least 5 days. And to me, why I love this show so much is because it's not just Amy doing her walkthrough. It's not just Amy going in and feeling what she's feeling. You've got Steve on the other side who is unearthing everything he can that is either written, that is documented. I mean, he's treating it just like a police investigation. And that, to me, is kind of like the gold on the other side. You've got Amy on one side, and she's giving you the psychic impression that she's getting. But she's got backup. She's got the information to back it up, because Steve is out there and he's researching. He's digging up all of these things. Some of the cases that they've done where, you know, some of the activity, Amy gets the activity, she can see what's going on, she's in contact with these spirits, but Steve is the one that's finding the answers as to why something may be happening. Maybe some kind of situation has happened that makes sense, and then when they put them all together, it all clicks. That's why I love that show. And I think it is one of the few shows on television that kind of gives you a really thorough idea of what activity is. And I know some people, it's not their cup of tea. I know some people think that, you know, they down it. It's not what they like. That's fine. Not one person is going to like everything. But to me, personally, I really do appreciate what they go through, and I really hope this show is going to be on for quite a long time.
I do too, and I don't mean to be picking a fight with you, Lucy. You know me, I love debate, and I'm trying to find something to debate you on, because we always agree on everything, and I hate that. I want something to fight with you on. So maybe I'm trying to find something here. But you know, do you feel any sort of negative feelings towards the show because I mean, the Dead Files, they don't, Amy and Steve, they don't go back. They don't follow up, you know, in the next month or so, you know, whereas many other groups or investigative teams, when they do residential homes, they will do that. You know, they will, you know, have a phone call. Unless it's the show doing a follow-up, you know, visit, I don't think Amy and Steve go back. And I know that's one of the things that you have sort of a bone of contention with groups that, you know, they don't follow up with the homes that they've gone to check up on them to see if, you know, if everything is okay or if they need any additional help. Do you feel any negativity towards the Dead Files because they don't?
No. And my reasoning, again, is because of how thorough they are in the first place. Like you said, the homeowner has to take some kind of responsibility. At the end of that investigation, Amy does give them kind of like a recipe on what people need to do. And then I've also seen her, not very often, but if you've watched the show, you know that she's told people that your only option is to get out. It is, you know, she's very honest, in my opinion. I don't know, you know, like I said, I can't say for sure, but in my opinion, what I see, she's very honest about what these people have to do. She gives them kind of like a recipe as to how to solve it. It's up to that homeowner or up to that person living in that area to either follow through or not to. And, you know, when you see something that's happening, regardless, it doesn't have to be paranormal. You see a situation, you see a problem, someone comes to you for advice about it, and you pretty much check it out, you know, and you say, okay, here's what you need to do to solve this. All you can do is give them what you believe to be the solution. You can't hold their hand. You can't make them do it. Whether they choose to follow through it's up to them. It really is.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm going to pose this question to you, Lucy.
Okay.
As of right now, would you investigate a private home? I know the answer to this, but I'm just you know, humor me.
No.
Okay. If Amy Allen was to call you tomorrow and say, I'd like you to come with me to a private residence, would you investigate this private residence home with her?
Honestly, my first instinct would be to say yes, but morally, I think, and that's only because I want to see her in action. I want to see. No, because what you're doing is going against what you said. I said, but wait, you didn't let me finish. My
Go ahead.
first instinct would be to say yes, but morally, I would have to say no.
But instinctively, why would you say yes?
Because I want it, because it's Amy.
So you would sacrifice someone's home.
No.
And the entities
morally,
and the entities that are in there. What?
Morally, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay. I think I'm going to get a different answer if I ask you privately, but anyway.
No. No.
Okay.
No, seriously. I mean, sure, it would be. No, I don't think a private home. Okay, let me backtrack. No, not a private home. But if it would be something like Alcatraz, heck yeah. In a minute.
Oh yeah, I'm not even talking about that because we're not on that topic. We're talking about private home investigations, and the idea because I'm only asking that because you have an adoration for Amy as I do as well. I think the woman is amazing. I mean, there's got to be something wrong. I mean, there just has to be something wrong. She is dead on almost every one of the episodes, and I'm sure that there are investigations that she's gone on that, you know, has not been 100%. I'm sure. Mm-hmm. You know, otherwise I'm going to think she's God reincarnated. But I do have an adoration for her. I do think that she is, you know, she's the shit. She's a real deal. She really is. I really think so.
Let me say something really quick. and what you're saying. Just let me interject, please. Okay, so you're saying that, she's not 100%, and she is not. She gets the impressions, and she sees these things, but a lot of times she doesn't understand what she's seeing. It's not until she gets the background information from Steve that it clicks.
I know. I get that. I've watched the show.
But do you see what I mean? So for Amy to go by herself, she may not get all the answers.
No, and I get that. I truly get that. But what I was getting at is that I know you have this adoration for her, and so, it was funny to hear you say instinctively that yes, you would, only because you're thinking of Amy, and in my opinion, and I'm probably wrong, but in my opinion, you weren't thinking of the family,
Right.
Is what I'm trying to say. And that's what I was trying to get out before.
The yes is a total selfish answer. The yes is for me. But morally, I have to say no for the family. I couldn't do that.
Right. And Susan was asking, why do I think that was sacrificing? And that's exactly it. That's what I was meaning about as far as she was sort of sacrificing the family just so that she could be on an investigation with Amy. And that's what I was sort of getting at. And I get it, I mean, maybe off the air, I may say that. I like that. I would love to do something with Amy. I don't know, if I got that phone call tomorrow, I don't know if I can truly say yes or no. I don't know. I'll have to cross that bridge if I ever do get that phone call, but I highly doubt I will, so I don't have to worry about it.
But, I mean, no, from a moral standpoint, it's still the same thing. I couldn't do it. I mean, it's not for me. Sharon had said earlier in chat, she goes, Lucy, you help everybody with readings. To me, that's different, because my disclaimer to anyone is that, it goes back to you can't base a life decision on a reading, regardless of who it is. I mean, I will tell people that I read for myself. Don't change your life because of what I'm saying. This is a little bit different. This is someone's home. This is where they're living. This is where their children are. And if there's something negative that's in there, and I go in and I make it worse, that's not helping. That's not helping anybody. That's where I'm, coming from.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. You want me to, you want to put me to the wall? Do you have any questions?
I mean, okay, and I know you pretty much said no, but is there any kind of situation that might change your mind on going into a private home?
No, it's funny because recently my brother and his wife and his family had told me that the house that they live in, they've had many experiences in. Many. Some of them were almost frightening to the point where, one of his daughters was hysterical crying. And they've said to me, and they've sort of hesitantly asked if I would go in there and just see what it is, find out what it is. And on one hand, I'm so tempted to do it, one, because it's my brother and his family. I don't like to see people who have been in distress. I mean, nothing negative has happened there recently, but there have been some occasions where, it's gotten really frightening in there. And on one hand, I would love to go in there and try and see if I can find something and maybe help them. But on the other hand, and I've told him this, if I go in there, just the mere act of me opening up a communication, even if I just walked in there and addressed if there was anything in the room, if there was anything in the home, I'm opening up that line of communication where if they feel as though that somebody is reaching out to them, that they're going to reach back. And if I don't get anything off that first spot and I leave and I go home, they may continue to get the communication because all the spirits are hearing is that, oh, somebody wants to talk to me. Okay, what do you want to talk about? Let's do this. You like this book? Let me throw this book across the room. So I don't feel comfortable in doing that. Even though I would have access to the home probably every single minute of the day because he's my brother, I don't feel as though that I would be able to have the knowledge enough, even if I were to discover what it was or who it was. I don't have a means of resolving it for them. And now it becomes, okay, now I got to find someone who is a true medium psychic who can help me. Now, how do I trust a person like that? How do I know that I'm going to find someone? What if they come in and they're not true to heart? When I find the wrong person, hey, I found a psychic who was trying to give me a $300 candle. Luckily I never believed them, but, there are those people out there. So I've been tempted, but I've still said no. And to this day, I have not done anything in their house.
Okay. I get that. Because, I've been to your house. I know you have a spirit that's there. Far be it from me to even try to communicate because I don't want to change any situation that's in there. I don't want to sit down and have a conversation or try to investigate, and then I go home, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with, who knows, maybe I could piss off this person or this spirit, and then you're stuck with the residual situation that I've caused. I can't do that. I can't do that to anyone. That to me is such a responsibility that I really believe that someone who's trained to do this or someone who has more experience is the person that needs to deal with this. We've had people, email us or contact us about situations that have happened, to them. And, they're asking for help. I've actually referred people to the Dead Files. I've actually referred them to, other people, to people that are more experienced, only because I don't feel I'm qualified to help somebody. I may have experience in coming in contact with spirits and things like that, but I can honestly say, and I think you'll agree with me, I really don't think we've ever come across anything that is demonic. We've come across some pretty dark stuff, but I don't think we've ever truly come across anything demonic or anything like that. So how, in my mind, can I help somebody when I don't even know what it's like?
Right, and I think somebody had mentioned it in chat. I'm not sure if it was Trina or Susan or Sharon had mentioned this, that, a lot of people have that sort of misunderstanding that a negative spirit or some spirit that, could have some bad traits, because we've said this all the time, if you're bad in life, you're going to be bad in death as well. And so you take that attitude and you take that personality. So someone throwing a book or even someone scratching you doesn't mean that it's demonic. And a lot of folks just tend to go straight to that because, again, that's what's on television. That's what you see in entertainment. And that's what your mind goes to first. But, like you said, there is. I know that there is something in my house, and I can easily break out my video camera and my audio recorder and go to work. I won't even do it on myself. I won't even do it in my own home. I know they say that you should not do it because it's the place that you live, but I won't do it just because whoever's here is not doing anything harmful to me. They are still, quote unquote, living here in this residence, and they died here. And if they're comfortable in this house, then I'm fine with it. I don't mind that they're still here. I wish that they would move on and be happier if that is the case, but maybe they are happy here, and so I'm not going to disrupt that. I'm not going to intrude on that. And they continue to still do things. Lucy, I didn't tell you this, but just earlier this week, my television has gone off twice in the same night. The remote was not even near me at all, so that's something new that's going on, besides the noises that I hear and the actual vision of the apparition, the physical apparition that I saw, in full light, and I could see the face and everything, and all of that stuff. But if they are happy living here and they haven't done anything negative to me, then I'm fine. They can, he can still continue to be here, and I'm sure he's listening right now. You can continue to live here. I'm fine with it. Just, let me do my thing and you do your thing. You can continue on and I'll still continue on. If it gets to be where it becomes negative or becomes to disrupt my life, then I'll have to start to think twice about my initial thought about it or my initial opinion, and who knows, But I haven't crossed that bridge yet, so I'm not going to force a journey across that bridge because it's not going to happen.
Well, one thing that comes to mind, I've got somebody here too, and I live in a very old apartment building, so of course there's been, you've got things that happen here. I know that there's something here. I mean, they regularly open the door. Usually when I'm talking to you, they open the door. They spend a lot of time in my kitchen. But I think the difference between us and other people is the fear. I think, like you said, if someone's bad when they were alive, they're going to be pretty negative when they're on the other side too. They're and in real life, when they were alive, if they fed on fear, I honestly believe that maybe that'll transcend to the other side. If they see that the people that are in and that are in the place or location are showing fear, if they know that they can scare you, I mean, a bully is going to thrive on it. When they see that they can instill fear in somebody, it just eggs them on. Couldn't this be the same thing when they're on the other side? If you've got something, and it doesn't have, and it's not probably not a demon, it's just a negative person. They're on the other side. Now they have this family or this person that moves into whatever area they are, and this person doesn't know anything. The average person really doesn't have an idea. We're lucky because, well, I'm not going to say we're lucky. We're different because we've done our research. This is what we're students of. A person who doesn't have that knowledge, of course, they're going to be fearful. So could this negative spirit be on the other side, thriving on your fear? Could that fear give them the energy they need to do things, to become active? Is that a possibility?
Well, I think, in my personal opinion, I think it's everybody has energy, and so even here in life and here in the afterlife, or there in the afterlife, energy still exists, and so it is still affected, and your energy here can affect the energy in the afterlife, and your negative energy, or your fearful energy, or your happy energy can affect the afterlife energy. And, they could feed off of it, or they can use that energy, or they may be attracted to that energy. And so, we've always said this before, too, even going into an investigation, you really should sort of try and clear your mind and remove any sort of negative thoughts, or try not to do, anything negative that day, because that energy is still implanted within you. Try to be pure. Try to be as pure as you can be, because then you'll have a better chance of opening the lines of communication and not attracting the negative at first. You'll be able to open up to the better side, the good side, the not so negative spirits out there, to get the communication that you want. So if you are in your home and you have troubles and you have that energy, I mean, you've heard it a lot of times, even on the show The Dead Files, where they're in the family itself, or even on Paranormal State, where families have gone through turmoil or have gone through a lot of grief or depression, even anxiety, just even traumatic experiences that have happened in the family, either within the home or outside the home. It doesn't necessarily have to be within the home. But if that energy has been within you in your life, and you come back to your home, which is supposed to be your sanctuary, it's a place where you're supposed to go to peace, but you still bring that negative energy around you because of the experiences that you've had, could very well attract the spirits to it, and could very well, where there may have not have been a haunting, could now be a haunting because you may have attracted that energy. They feel that need for the energy. That's my belief. I don't know if that is true. I don't know if that actually does happen. But as I'm reading and researching and trying to learn more about this field, one of the aspects that I'm learning about more of now, especially now, is the energy side of things and how that is sort of commingling with a lot of the different aspects within the paranormal. And it's a pretty fascinating area to get into. It does get a little bit more advanced because you start to talk about quantum mechanics and the quantum science of things. And if you're not comfortable with science, getting into quantum science itself will flip your lid. So it is a really interesting area to get into and to try and understand. And some of the things that I've been reading about are leading me to believe in that direction. Where I end up, I don't know. I may be going off on a dead-end street and have to backtrack and go somewhere else. But at this current state, in where I am right now, I'm sort of understanding the belief that energy has a lot to do with it. And it is the energy of the living, but it is also the energy of the dead that once it is commingled, create some sort of existence and create those open lines.
Okay. And one thing that just popped into my head as we're talking, too, when it goes back to the research and the energy, the energy that's in the land, okay? And to go back to the Dead Files, one of the episodes that I just recently watched over again had to do with a farmhouse or a family's home that really was on what they discovered through their research was Indian land. And it was Indian land that was wrongly gotten by settlers, that the tribe had either been, I believe the tribe had been sold out by their chief and they had taken over the Indian land. And basically the activity that was happening was a result of the Native American spirits that wanted to take back their land. And the family that was living in this home, were just trying to live. And basically these were the things that were happening to them. It was a result of what had transpired on that land. And the land has a lot to do with it. And we've mentioned this before. We've talked about it before. There can be hauntings in a location, but the building's brand new, and your first thought is, how can something be happening here? This is a brand new building. And I think a lot of people that don't do the research, they kind of they leave out a big part of the puzzle. And the big part of the puzzle is the earth. It is the land. And it doesn't have to be Native American. It can be, we mentioned Bachelor's Grove. Some of the things that have transpired in Bachelor's Grove are pretty negative. There's like a small lake that's in there. And it was a dumping ground for, criminals to dump their victims. So even though the land is clear, and there's a cemetery there, these are the things that are there, and these are the things that probably have a lot to do with the activity. So it's not just like the here and now. I think sometimes we forget that we're just a small sliver of time in the whole mix of everything. Where we are right now is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what has happened in history and in life and, whatever. We don't have all the answers. We don't know everything that's happened in a particular spot. But by the research, it kind of gives us a little bit more idea. And I think that's all part of it. It's not just going into a location for me. For me, half of the reward is finding out the story. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding. No, it does make sense.
You just want to fight with me.
I do. All right, come on, guys. I'm gonna pose this question out to the listeners out there. You guys got to find. You've listened to the show. Come on, Sharon. I know Susan and Mateo and everybody out there listening. You guys have listened to us. I'm sure there's a topic that you guys can think of that you probably think that Lucy and I will disagree on. I'm curious to find out if somebody can pick a topic that we may disagree on. And I think, didn't we find one area of the paranormal that you and I differ on?
There's not much.
There was one, though. I remember there was one thing that we talked about.
Orbs.
No, I don't think it was orbs. I think we have the same thought on that.
Oh God, what is I don't know. Come on,
I can't remember.
You gotta help us. We need. This is what we need to do. We need to set up a debate between Anthony and me, and then we'll take that.
Anybody is welcome to come on the show at that time, and you can pick a side if you'd like. And I'm curious to find out what we differ on. I don't know. But anyway, I do want to thank Rick Hale for coming on the show. I think it was a great interview. You know, some things that we differ on with him, and that was the private residential home investigations. We don't do that. You know, he did mention that it's sort of, that's where the meat of real paranormal is doing residential homes. I tend to disagree with that. I don't think that, yes, it is a great area to get into to help others, and I think that is what paranormal is about, but I don't think it's what paranormal is all about, if that makes sense. You know, if you call us selfish, I'm in it to find answers. I'm in it to look and see what are the possibilities. As long as I'm living here on Earth, I'm curious. That's what it is to be a human. You are curious about everything, and if you don't ask any questions and you don't sort of, you know, pull up the rug to find out what's underneath, I don't know, to me, I don't feel I'm living. I don't feel as though I'm living life. I thrive on educating myself. I constantly watch History Channel and Science Channel. I'm just a nut like that. I love those kind of things, and it really does interest me. And what it also does in a sort of unconscious mode, what it does subconsciously then is it brings on communication with other people, and it brings on those friendships, and it brings on those connections that I have here with people who are living and connecting with folks and sharing stories. And to me, isn't that what life is all about, is that connection with others? So I love what I do. I love doing this. You know, call me selfish, but I think it's rewarding to do what I'm doing. I think it's also rewarding to do what the Rick Hales and everybody else out there who's listening, what you guys do. I think everything is rewarding in itself, to each their own. And I do want to thank Rick Hale for coming on and expressing his opinions on things, his book, The Geek's Guide to the Strange and Unusual, Poltergeists, Ghosts, and Demons. He does bring up and talk about locations around the world, and some of them are pretty fascinating. And he gives his opinion about them and what he does, and I think that's great. I think his book is great. His show is really good, and so I commend him on his efforts. And I agree with him, like I said before, 100%. Research is the number one thing.
I'm trying to think here. No, thank you, Rick. I mean, it was very interesting, and it did spur a really cool conversation. I need to ask you, because somebody posted in chat, what do you think of spirit boxes?
What do I think of spirit boxes? One, I think it's annoying.
You know, well, you do know that the spirit box is one of my favorite tools.
I know,
I love it.
And you know, I think it's a great tool. I think it's it is a great tool to use on an investigation. I love it. I tend to get, and you know me, I think I've said this to you before, I tend to get annoyed with it because and the only reason why I get annoyed with it is because there have been several instances where we've had the ghost box going, and I've heard a disembodied voice in the room, but it wasn't captured because when you do a ghost box, first of all, it's so loud, and you've got that repetitive air noise going on that it drowns out everything else. And so I wasn't able to capture a disembodied voice. And there were 2 instances I can still hear it. You know, I can hear it, that voice coming through, and I just wish that I was able to capture it. Not that it probably would have catapulted me into some other realm, but I would have rather have heard that voice than a voice coming through the ghost box. And you know, to also play the skeptic part of it, the ghost box, I'm not 100% sure if it is accurate 100% of the time.
Okay. I was just trying to think of something we disagree on.
No, and I want to scroll up, and I'll only give this one more minute, and then we got to get into the rest of the show. But somebody said it. Somebody, who is it? I don't remember if it was Sharon or Susan, said something about numbers, or was it coincidence, or 1111? I think we did a show on. Remember? What was that show about coincidence, and I had sort of disagreed with you on that? That they're really
the 1111 phenomena.
Right. That your belief was that things sort of happen for a reason, and I tended to believe that, don't forget that there is coincidence, and it sort of gets muddy in between. A meaningful experience or synchronicity and coincidence. But I think I've admitted to this after that show that I don't have that belief anymore, that I do tend to believe that there are meaningful experiences and things are happening for a reason. I don't remember how far after that show I came to that conclusion, but I do now. I've come to the dark side. I've come to Lucy's side.
It's because we have cookies. Okay, I'll still try to think of something, but it's really hard. I mean, honestly, we agree on almost everything.
Yeah, we got to find something. We'll find something.
Okay. Well, let's move on. And how about I do the Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week?
There you go.
See, you got me all flustered. This week, let's do the Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week. And this week, it's Jamie McCary of Boonville, Indiana. Jamie likes Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, The Beatles, The Walking Dead, Ancient Aliens, Salvador Dali, Jesse Ventura, and, of course, she likes Paranormal Review Radio. Thank you, Jamie, for posting and liking stuff on our page. Congratulations. And I just want to mention something really quick. On our Facebook page, show page, we've added a tab that lists the top fans of the week. So the more you post, the more you like, it moves you up on the list. And it's been a really great help in seeing just who our super fans are. So like us, post, pay attention to the show page, and you too can be a Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week. Okay, I just stole your line.
I know you did. So don't forget, as Lucy was saying, if you want to be a Paranormal Review Radio Fan of the Week, just like us on Facebook. That's Paranormal Review Radio. You can also send us an email at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com. And as we said in the beginning of the show, if there's any topics that you'd like to talk about, or if you yourself want to be a guest on the show, if you've got a theory that may be different or may even be controversial, hey, we talk about everything on the show. Don't be afraid. Shoot us an email at Paranormal Review Radio. Let us know what you're thinking of, what your topic is. If you yourself want to be on the show, or if you want to recommend a guest, it could be anyone in the field that you let us know the contact information, and if we're able to put it in the schedule right away, great, we'll contact you back. If not, we'll probably reschedule it for a later time, later show in the year, and we'll get back to you on that as well.
And just to add to that, we've also added a contact tab on the show page. So if you want to send an email, you can send it directly from our Facebook show page. Okay? Well, the paranormal encompasses so many things that we know nothing about. No matter how many times you've investigated, never assume you know everything. We've said it before and we'll say it again. No one is an expert. Do your research, protect yourself, and above all, never venture out alone. To be an investigator is a commitment that takes more than just loading up some cameras and recorders and heading to the latest paranormal hotspot. By learning the history of a location and researching prior cases, you will learn what possibly can happen. You may discover something new, something that may just help you to have the best and safest experience ever. We want to thank Rick for joining us tonight. What a great and informative conversation this was. So, let's keep talking about investigating. Are you itching to get back out there? We are, and we're thinking about how we're going to go about it. Will you be trying something new? What tools will you use? Now, one of the most controversial items that we have used in our own investigations is the infamous Ouija board. We really did get some interesting feedback when we did, so we wanted to open this up for discussion. Is the Ouija just another piece of communication equipment, or is it something dangerous? Next Friday night, join us for the great Ouija debate. Now, this was originally scheduled for a couple weeks ago, but we had to postpone it. So never fear, next Friday night is the night. We'll be opening up the phone lines to get your stories of what has happened to you when you use the Ouija. And we're going to be talking to people on both sides of the issue, including a debate with two paranormal investigators, Rob Henry and Jason Olivo. In addition, we'll get a historical opinion from the Ouija expert himself, Mr. Bob Murch, and we'll talk about an alternate theory on the Ouija board, on Ouija board communication, from our good friend Brian Kalin. Do you have an experience that you want to share? Do you have an opinion on the Ouija? Call us next week and share your story. We want to hear from you. Thank you, everyone, for spending another Friday night with us. Your love and support makes this the best night of the week. Thank you, Anthony, for another awesome show. You are just so amazing.
Aww.
So until next week, dear friends, never give up the search for answers and have a paranormal week. Good night.
Good night, everybody. And if tomorrow is the end of the world, it was great knowing you. Have a great weekend.
Paranormal Review Radio. Paranormal Review Radio.